life insurance is not like a make or break, but it's an enhancer. And if you do a life insurance policy, say this is life insurance, this now protects you over here, all while giving you the ability to do other things. It has other benefits that's hard to put on a spreadsheet. Brian, welcome to the BetterWealth Show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Caleb. Really appreciate it.
It's an honor to have you on. I want to just give you a shout out because you are not an advisor. You're not an insurance agent. You watch the content. You're a person that owns life insurance, 2 life insurance policies. You've written a book on helping your family really understand the principles of money and life. And just know that book is going to be in the show notes. One of the things that in conversations, because you just reached out to me and you're like, Caleb, I would love to share my perspective, not being an advisor, but just some of the things that I've learned. And so we got to chatting. You put together this presentation, and what I would love to do is walk through it with you quickly, but then also draw at the end kind of the way that I would, my process. And I think it's very similar. And I think there's a lot of people that can benefit from this because we have a lot of videos that talk about the value of life insurance, and obviously people that understand that they're their greatest asset, super valuable there. But one of the things that I want to be able to really double down on is make sure that we understand process and flow. And this is kind of bringing me back to like 4 or 5 years ago when I'm in front of people on a whiteboard walking through process and flow. And I think it's essential because if we don't understand this, we can understand assets and products all day long, but we don't get the point. And so what I'm going to do is there anything that you want to share before we jump in of like, about yourself, or give a little bit of context just so people know like who you are and why you're on the show?
Yes, absolutely. And, just really, I was fortunate to be introduced to the policy. I've really learned a lot, Caleb, certainly from your content. There's a few others in this space that I think do a really nice job as well. And so, really had the benefit of learning from you all. And frankly, now I'm to the point in my policies where they've had some seed time. The cash value's grown to a point to where now I'm able to leverage the cash value, right, as a collateralized loan. And I'm using that to then stack up additional cash flow producing assets. So I'm a big fan of the asset. Anything I can do to help kind of get the message out there, because I don't think it's well understood out there, despite I think if everyone just watches your material, they'd get it. But
I think what's important to know is your W-2. So I think a lot of times we attract people, especially on videos, that are, 1099 business entrepreneurs. And obviously this asset's phenomenal for you if you're as an entrepreneur. But the point is you're not necessarily like you have a day job, and you're able to use this asset to still create benefit and cash flow. And that's something that we'll be able to talk through. And ultimately, this slideshow that we're going to go through is you teaching to your kids. And I think it's profound. I think it's powerful. And I think it's awesome that you are thinking with the end in mind and putting together like a SOP for your kids to really understand how money flows. And so we're going to go through it quickly, and I'll explain it, and then you can give the 2 cents. But you're pretty much saying number 1 is spender profile. And you're saying that people make money, goes to the government, out of monthly cash flow, all of it goes to liabilities, choices, lifestyle, and welcome to America. Most people aren't saving anything. And so obviously this is the person that makes to literally spend.
That's exactly right. That's right. It may feel good in the moment, but long term, it's not a recipe for long term success.
Then your next slide essentially is like, hey, this is the person that's the saver. I think you mentioned to me that you resonate with that, especially on your upbringing. I resonate with this as well. You make money, pay government, monthly cash flow comes in, monthly expenses, but then you save, but you're not really like, the saving is very stale. It's like a pond that's growing, algae and all this stuff. But at least you have something to show for it, but it's not creating momentum, velocity, cash flow. Anything that you would say as it relates to the saver profile?
Yeah, you nailed it. You add in,
and it's important that the saver profile is the stepping stone. Because if you don't have anything to save, we're not here to talk. So I think it's important as you're walking through. Every step is getting better in in the way that you lay this out. The slide, you have middle class and high income typical investors. And what you put here is you have your income, and then you have your monthly cash flow, your spending money, you have a savings account, that's essentially being saved to buy liabilities. The only difference here is this person is putting their money in 401k, IRAs, retirement accounts,
Right.
which has some benefits, but I think you've put those lines to represent like a jail cell. So it's like you put money in there, it's kind of locked up, it'll be beneficial. The savings account, though, you're at least you're saving, which is good, but you're saving to acquire ultimately other liabilities, expenses. I know that Robert Kiyosaki's impacted you a lot, so a lot of this is based off of
Yes.
his game and his books. And so anything that you would add on the middle class and high income.
Yeah. So spot on it. I think this might be the most traditional kind of profile what we see out there. But again, with the 401k being kind of locked up, hard to get to, without severe penalties, right? Showing that it
Yeah.
is an account. We don't know how it's going to perform, what the taxes are going to be when we can pull it out, et cetera, et cetera, right? It makes you kind of question putting all of your eggs into that.
Yeah, and that's quite frankly, like I think of doctors and stuff like they got their they got their accounts, but at the end of the day, they don't have a system, a process, their money really working for them. They have assets, but it really dwarfs in comparison to what they'll really need in the future. And that's just the sad reality. Now this is where if you're not analytical, there's a lot going on this, but you're saying this is the wealthy profile. So you want your kids to be thinking like this. So you're saying obviously you make your income, and the income goes into monthly cash flow. You obviously expend. I want to notice that your pictures have increased. They're not driving a beater anymore. They're driving a Raptor, and they got a mansion and stuff. That's cool. They have a savings account, or actually I should say they have a storage account. You can talk
There
about
you
that in
go.
a second. I think that's one of the light bulb moments for life insurance. And this now creates the ability to you can collateralize that money and buy appreciating assets. You have gold, silver, stocks, etc. But then also cash flow producing assets. This could be business, real estate, etc. And then if you're following this, you have a big green line that goes up and to the left, and it continues to flow back, and now it's tax favored because now you're getting money from real estate, which may be better tax treatment than making money from your W-2. And so you still in this scenario have your qualified assets, which I think is reasonable. And it's like, I'm very pro people doing what they want, and some people like want to get the match on their 401k, and awesome. But what I love is you're literally showing both, and you're also laying out if you buy liabilities, which is reasonable. You'll buy liabilities, but you're going to make sure that gets paid back. You're going to make sure that cash flow is going to pay for that. So I know that there's a lot here. We don't have a ton of time. Why don't you walk through some of the key points and talk about the difference between savings and storage?
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and frankly, I think one of the people that kind of light bulb for me used that vocabulary shift was Grant Cardone, right? He's a big real estate guy.
Mhm.
But yeah, so savings, and I've seen a lot of this growing up, right? If our intention is to just grow an account, right? But we have no plan to how to use that account efficiently for the lifestyles, for the dreams, the accomplishments, the things that we want to experience with our precious time on this earth. If all it's doing is sitting in an account and growing some number, that's kind of missing the mark, right? That's not what the capital or the money is there for, right? It's there
Yep.
flow as currency and to produce experiences, right? And so that's the shift between savings and storing. And then yeah, I think initially before I was introduced into this concept, right, it was a traditional bank savings account to accumulate my capital.
Yep.
Certainly, I was fortunate enough to come across Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, so I did value early on the difference between assets and liabilities. But what I've since learned is, boy, you get an overfunded whole life policy in place, boy, that is a much more efficient way to protect and to grow that capital that now is going to give me long term. It's going to give me the ability to even stack, whether it's additional cash flow producing assets or
Yeah.
right large expenditures, right? So my wife will also remind me that, hey, Brian, if all we do is just accumulate assets, like it's to produce income for a lifestyle and experiences, right? So
Yeah.
I need to be checked on that front as well.
Yeah. I think this is great, and if you're okay with it, I think if you want to see these slides, we'll make a PDF version of some of these pictures down below, because I think it's from an educational standpoint, it's a good conversation starter. Want to make a point that neither Brian or I are giving investment advice. This is
Right.
something that he put together, and I think it's wonderful, and I just want to commend you for putting yourself out there, and I think there's a lot of great conversations that can happen from this. I don't necessarily share this a lot, but I would love to walk you through on a slide, on a drawing, and walk you through just like how I explain the flow of money, because I just find that um, it'd just be interesting, especially since you kind of shared as well. Is Let me just give me 1 second. Okay, so the thought processes, and again, imagine sharing this with your kids, is
Right.
we would spend a lot of time on them as an individual, and I think there's a lot of things that you could reverse engineer. You could say, hey, like, as a kids, it's important to me that we create skill sets that are valuable. It's important to me that you have good relationships. Ultimately, it's really important to me that you pick a great spouse. It's important to me that we value our time. It's important to me that we have good, healthy habits. And so, pretty much, get them your book and make sure that they're really living that out. But they're continuing to audit themselves, and they're doing a continual SWOT analysis on what are some of my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I think that's important. And ultimately, a result of that is something we call cash flow, which is very prevalent in your slide deck.
Right.
Cash flow is the lifeblood of your financial life, and it's vital. It's vital, and we have to understand that not all cash flow is created equal. Someone might be more valuable to the marketplace and get paid a lot more. I'm assuming you make more money salary wise than the average salary. How do I know that? It's because you provide more value than the typical American. I can say that confidently because of who you are, and at the end of the day, you have receipts to prove that. And so it's just like we could talk all day long. Your business A versus business B, they might be doing the same thing. Why is one more valuable than the other?
Right.
Now that we
Right.
have cash flow, though, there's really a couple places that it could go. Now, what you're saying is you could take some of this money pre taxes, and you could put it into an account over here, lock it up, but you get some tax benefits from it, which I like that concept. But the way that again I explain this is there's really only two things that can happen with your dollar once it's made. It can be consumed, or it can be saved, or stored.
Right.
And consumed is it's gone forever. Consumption could be spending, could be
Right.
taxes, it could be giving, it could be debt service. And so at the end of the day, consumption is our lifestyle. It's our life. It's the intentional or unintentional choice of keeping us upright and alive and out of jail kind of deal. So it's obviously important, but if we're helping people, if we're coaching people on things, that we could say, hey, are you spending money on what you value? Maybe you're spending money on dumb things. Are you
Right.
overpaying on taxes? Most people, especially entrepreneurs, overpay on taxes. Are you, I love the fact that you're generous. Are you, you know, are you giving strategically? I mean, there's some people that might be giving, but they just like they're not tracking anything. They need to be intentional with how they give. And debt wise, like, is your debt out of line? Are you looking at debt as a asset portfolio? And so the idea is, okay, we have that, but then we also, when it comes to savings, savings is a verb. Savings in itself, just like what you talked about, is not going to make you rich, but it's
Right.
the verb. If you're not saving anything, it's 100% and zero is still zero. And so the way that I almost see it is, I see it as we have an emergency, and O for opportunity. And obviously what I want to do first and foremost is I want to save an emergency fund so that this person shows up powerfully, but if things happen, I have something that I can go to. But then O for opportunity is essentially, this is where I'm looking for, where can I invest? Where can I put my money? And I'm looking for not only cash flow, but I'm looking for, I want to live intentional. And so I'm looking for, it could be businesses. I'm looking for potential real estate. I'm looking for, I'm just going to do question mark, question mark, question mark, because it's infinite essentially.
Sure.
And my hope is that this goes right back here,
Right.
creating
There you
more
go.
cash flow.
That's right.
And again, some of that money, you're not 100% can be saved because some of it has to go to taxes and all. But that's flow. So it's fun to see two different things of like, hey, we got PowerPoint. This isn't perfect, but what I love about what you shared, and what this is, it helps have conversations. We can have a talk about you. We can talk about cash flow. We can have a talk about where money's going. We can talk about the saving. How much emergency should you have? What does opportunity look like? What you should do with opportunity. Not all opportunity is created equal. There's this thing called risk. What do we do with cash flow? Cash flow's got to flow somewhere, and obviously, as this gets rolling, your quality of life, your consumption, your giving, your taxes, your spending can all increase because this dollars is bigger. And so I know we gotta wrap this up, but this is what's fun, is these conversations we get to go back and forth. And I think what's valuable is life insurance is not like a make or break, but it's an enhancer. And it does, when we look at a place to store and use money, an emergency opportunity, it's an amazing place for that. And if I may, if you do a life insurance policy, say this is life insurance, this now protects you over here, all while giving you the ability to do other things. It has other benefits that's hard to put on a spreadsheet: protection, legacy, credit, and all. And so, Brian, thank you for being on. I know our time is coming up short. Time flies when you're having fun. Why don't you give a 60-second overview of your book and why you wrote it?
The book that I recently wrote, it's Lessons from the Breakfast Table, and the subtitle's Keys to Success from A to Z. And so the premise of the book, and really how it began was, Sunday morning at the breakfast table, my wife and I, right, as any parents are doing, right, trying to teach our children. And so we have a chalkboard, by the kitchen table, and we started with A, and I wrote A is for attitude, right? And so that week we had a discussion. Why is attitude, having a positive attitude, why is that so important, right? So we spent a lot of time talking about that. And throughout the week, after school, then at the dinner table, I'd ask them, how was their day? Such and such would happen. Well, how did having a better attitude ultimately help the outcome, right? And so really spent the week focused on that word. And then the following week, B is for believe, right? Why is belief such profound? So that's really the premise of the book. It actually began with us at the breakfast table and going through this, and then we're probably I don't know, midway through the alphabet, and the idea of turning it into a book, right, came to me. And just again, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it. This was absolutely awesome, getting to talk to you and to share this. And Caleb, I learned from you in this call, and frankly all of your content. So I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. You're making a difference out there. You're touching a lot of folks.
One of the things that I'm committed to doing is talking to everybody. I want to talk to the person that thinks that this is a scam. I want to talk to people who may disagree, because I think we can all be better by having conversation and promoting conversation. And so with that, Brian, thank you for being on. Thank you for what you do. And I think it's a perfect example of how someone that's making W-2 can get this thing, can be efficient, and it can teach their kids. And it's very inspiring.
Thanks again, Caleb. Really appreciate it.